It's a lot of action for the sake of action. There's a lot of filler. There is less emphasis on, a traditional story, beginning, middle, and end, with stakes that are, in a story structure that's designed to make people want to care and want to invest to see ultimately what's going to happen at the end of a program, meaning a wrestling program, not the hour or 3 hours in some cases. But, that has suffered, and understandably so. When you look at FX has got a new show on the air called Mayans. Kurt Sutter, the guy that created and executive produced Sons of Anarchy. He's got a new show that's a derivative of that, or a spinoff, call it whatever you want, called The Mayans. The Mayans is a Mexican or Hispanic, motorcycle gang, much like the Sons of Anarchy were. And that show, they've been working on that show for 2 years. Writing, casting. That show's been in development for at least 2 years that I'm aware of. And they'll do 8 or 10 episodes, I'm not sure which, and they'll go on hiatus for, 42 weeks while they're writing and creating and producing in order to have a hit show. And WWE doesn't have the luxury of producing 10 episodes and going on hiatus for 42 weeks. They're cranking out content 52 weeks a year. And, oh, by the way, they probably draw as big of an audience with Monday Night Raw as this big hit new show on Fox Network by Kurt Sutter, who is recognized as one of the greatest, or one of the best in recent years of creators and executive producers of scripted television. And WWE will deliver an audience that is either comparable, if not eclipse, that of Kurt Sutter's audience. And that's what I say. When people, and I'm ironically, I'm kind of defending WWE, and I don't necessarily mean to. I don't have any dog in that hunt. I don't expect to ever work there again. I'm not sure that I would even want to if that opportunity came my way, and I doubt that it ever will again. But at the same time, I understand the business, and I understand the product, and I have a broader view of it. And while wrestling fans, you mentioned something really interesting. You said, wrestling fans want every match to mean something. They want great matches. I've been hearing that, since the day I walked through the door of Verne Gagne's AWA in 1987. You got to have great matches. You got to have great matches. Well, Bill Watts had great matches, and nobody cared. There's a difference between a great match from a hardcore, 10% of the wrestling audience's perspective, and that's what I think the hardcore wrestling audience is. And by hardcore, I mean, just absolutely, the biggest fans of them all. I'm not saying hardcore in any kind of a negative way, but people that become so obsessed with the quality of the wrestling product, and whether it's a 4-star match or a 5-star match or a 2-star match, lose sight of the fact that the vast majority of the audience don't look at the product that way. They want to laugh. They want to see characters that are larger than life. They want to be entertained in a general way. The vast majority of the audience, probably 90% of the people that watch wrestling on television, that are mostly responsible for the fact that independent wrestling is successful as it is, don't really look at wrestling the same way as hardcore wrestling fans do. And that's always been the dilemma as a producer. I did it, I went through it, with Nitro when I started really, getting involved more in the creative process. Because up until 1996, I really wasn't involved in the creative process. Once I started getting involved in the creative process, of course, I was, kicked in the side of the head, almost on a daily basis, listening to the, negative comments about, some of the things that we were doing that were designed not to entertain the hardcore wrestling audience, whether it was Dennis Rodman or Jay Leno or doing a pay-per-view in Sturgis or, I could probably name off, a dozen things, and so could you, that the hardcore wrestling fans just shook their nose at. But it worked in terms of building a broader audience. And that's always the dilemma that you're faced as a producer. It's great when you're an independent promoter and you're only appealing to 600 or 800 fans in a local market. You can do whatever that market wants you to do. But when your job is to appeal to 3 or 4 or 5 or 6 or 8 million people, all of a sudden the parameters have to change.
Sure, and I want to touch on when you took over for Nitro, but do you think maybe NXT is WWE's way of placating to the hardcore fan and saying, here are your matches, here's your 15 to 17-minute matches each week so you can see your guys wrestle, let us have Raw and SmackDown, here's what you're looking for somewhere else?
I don't know. It would be disingenuous of me to comment too much on Next because I don't watch it, or NXT. I just don't. I'm aware of it. I've watched clips of it. I read about it, and I understand, where it might possibly fit within the WWE kind of architecture in terms of what it's for. I would probably go out on a limb, after admitting that I don't watch the product much, is saying it's not probably as much about satisfying the hardcore fan as it is really giving young, inexperienced talent an opportunity to transition from a wrestling school into a more formal television environment where time cues and, working cameras and learning how to sell are being introduced so that talent can someday transition into primetime. If in the process of achieving that transitional success, the matches happen to be 15, 16, 17 minutes long and there's more wrestling that you might normally see on Raw or SmackDown, then that's a great benefit. But I think the primary goal for NXT, from my perspective as a producer and someone who was in the business for a while, probably has a lot more to do with just helping that talent transition from the completely, bubble-like environment of a wrestling school and into, the next phase of wrestling in front of people with cameras available.
Sure, and like you said, I guess if satisfying the fans is a secondary function, and that's great. Going back to what you said in Nitro in 1996, and you had Dennis Rodman there, and you had Karl Malone there, and even the David Arquette thing, and everybody remembers that. But also on the top of your show, every time Monday Night Nitro was on, you had great matches. I mean, you had the Rey Mysterio, Psychosis, La Parka, Chris Jericho. So, that style and that cruiserweight style can directly be attributed to, Monday Nitro. So, I mean, while you were bringing in those big names and those celebrities for the third hour or the end of the second hour, in the beginning of the first hour, you're still showing off some great professional wrestling. So, when you had that creative control, I think you were accomplishing two things. You were getting the casual eyes over there, but you were also making those young stars a bigger name. And I think that's what the audience is looking for today. So you could have your Roman Reigns in the main event, but they still want to see those matches in the beginning of the show, and that's something I think Nitro kind of laid the groundwork for.
We did, but again, it was a different time. It was 20-some-odd years ago, and the world has changed. Television has changed, advertisers have changed. Everything is different. If you watch a sitcom today, if you watch one of the most popular sitcoms on network television today, and you compare it to Friends from the 90s, there's no comparison. They're produced entirely differently. The tone is completely different. Everything is different. The pace of the show is different. The type of humor is different because the audience evolves and changes. Everything does. So what I was able to do, or what I did so well, to a certain degree, by giving the audience such a balanced type of menu, and I've always, I've said this many times, I keep going back to food, I must be hungry. When I've always considered when a wrestling show, when Nitro was at its best, it was like the best buffet in the country. The prime rib was outstanding. The salad bar was off the chart. The seafood was the best. The desserts were great. The soup was outstanding. The chicken was, as good as it could possibly be. Everything on that menu was as good as it could be, but it was all different. I've talked a lot about, the success of Nitro was really the introduction of reality-based storytelling and character development. And it really was. It was, long before the Attitude Era, long before, so much of the stuff that people recognize in WWE is kind of like, the end-all, be-all in the Attitude Era. But all of that was introduced on Nitro, going back to 95 and 96. It wasn't until late 97 that WWE finally, after getting their asses kicked for as long as they did, realized that they had to change their formula and adapt to what we were doing, because what we were doing was so much more successful. And they did it better than we did, quite honestly. But that was a different time. And we were able to do things, there was some of our show was reality-based storytelling. That was the NWO. Some of the stuff that, other things that we did were very reality-based to lesser success than the NWO, obviously. But at the same time, we still had goofy shit. We still had comedy. We still had, over-the-top animated-like storylines, the Dungeon of Doom being one of them. That comes back to haunt me on a regular basis.
Not for nothing. I thought the Dungeon of Doom was awesome. I thought that was great. So don't beat yourself up too bad over that.
Yeah, but you were 12 at the time, so that doesn't count. But,
wow, nailed it! I actually was 12. That's fantastic.
There you go. See, I know from what I speak. But the idea was that even though the NWO story was really driving the audience and driving the product, that doesn't mean no different than a buffet. Just because the majority of the people are coming there for the prime rib, you don't want to turn away people that want a great salad bar or want a great seafood selection. The idea is to get as many people in the restaurant, or in the case of a television show, as many people watching as possible. So you've got to give all of them a little bit of what they like. And I think today, because the audience changes, the product changes, everything evolves, I think today that mission is a little bit different. Today the audience has learned, because of digital media, because of all of the content they can get on their phone. Nobody wants to pay attention to anything more than about 3 minutes. So it's not just wrestling. I mean, it's everything. Everything I watch on television. There are more commercial breaks now in an hour than there ever has been, and each one of those commercial breaks are longer than they've ever been, because it's harder and harder for networks to make money. So what do? They add more commercial time. What does that do to the story? Whether you're watching a sitcom, whether you're watching a drama, whether you're watching an action series, it doesn't really matter. The story is being told in smaller and smaller pieces because it has to, in order to survive in the world that they live in. And I think that's probably, to a large degree, that same thing is happening in wrestling.
So what advice, there are other companies out there right now. You have Ring of Honor and you have Impact, which you know all too well, but they've turned over a new leaf. What advice would you give to these other companies right now, to kind of carve out their own niche, if you will, to make themselves different from the WWE? And obviously you're never going to be as successful as Vince McMahon. Anybody is at that point, don't get me wrong. But what advice could you give to these companies to help them succeed, or, to give them an alternative to WWE? How would you do that?
Well, without singling out any one of them, because, Ring of Honor is substantially different than Impact. Impact is still, to a degree, trying to be WWE. The format is the same. The in-ring promos are pretty much the same. It's the same format. It's different people. There's enough difference there that you could say, well, yeah, but it's not the same. But the format, the basic foundation, the blueprint of the show is not unlike the WWE. And until Impact or Ring of Honor, Ring of Honor is a little bit of that's an anomaly. They're a subsidiary, obviously, of a much bigger, corporate entity, Sinclair Broadcasting. Sinclair Broadcasting, in a very unique situation, has got a large footprint in syndication. So the show that is produced for syndication is serving its purpose. It doesn't need to change. It's absolutely checking all of the boxes that it needs to check within that corporate environment. So it's unlikely that show is ever going to change, because there's no reason for it to. They're happy with it the way that it is. And until someone at Sinclair or Ring of Honor says, okay, we want to be something other than what we are, and we want to appeal to a broader audience or a larger audience, until that happens, there's no reason for them to change. Impact, like I said, it's still a watered down, poor man's version, the Kmart Light special of what they wish they could be with regard to WWE. not knocking anybody there. They're doing the best they can with what they have, but it's just, yeah,